I think we are almost ready to start now.
Okay, folks,
What about
Facebook Live has started.
7:31. We'll wait for another 7:35. We'll start.
Hello, Dr. Indumati. How are you?
Hello,
Hi,
sir.
Madhukar.
Good evening.
Hi, Kuresh. Hello, Governor.
Is Ashok Mahajan and Jayant also there?
Jayant is there.
Jayant is there.
Madhukarji was one of the first to
Yeah,
join.
I'm very much here.
Madhukarji,
Jayant is
you
there.
joined at 7, I think. As soon as I started the session, I think I saw you. Okay, we are live on Facebook now. So, folks, please be careful what you say.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Ashish.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Indumati. Good evening.
Hi,
Good
Sunil.
evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Indumati.
Belated happy anniversary to Mr. and Mrs. Mehra.
Thank you. Not belated. Abhi bhi chal rahi hai, don't worry.
You can find out if Ashok Mahajan is just reminder.
Hi, Lata.
बबली मेरा आवाज पहुंचा
अरे पहुंचा वंदू हाउ आर यू
एकदम फाइन गुड इवनिंग टू एवरीवन एंड
Hi, Indumati.
Hi. Hello, Dilip. Should we start?
श्योर
Yeah. There are 129 and I think people will register. So we could start with the proceedings and the formalities can start. May I request very good evening everyone. At the outset, Krishnan, the host club president of Rotary Club of Bombay Chembur West, may I ask him to start please the proceedings. Krishnan.
Thank you, Dr. Indumati. A very warm good evening to all the participants in this wonderful event of today. On behalf of the lead host club, which is the RC of Bombay Chembur West, a very warm welcome to all of you to this event, which is the COVID vaccination, a risk or a reward. Thank you all for the opportunity for allowing us to lead this program today. At the onset, let me give a very warm special welcome to Dr. Pankaj Bhatnagar, who is the NPSP team leader at WHO India, DG or ever smiling DG Sunil Mehra and his beautiful wife Shilpi, Rotary India Chair COVID Task Force PRID Ashok Mahajan ji, Zonal Coordinator PDG Dr. Jayant Kulkarni, District Coordinator Dr. Indumati Gopinath, Vision Presidents and other co-hosting Rotary Club families, the District COVID Task Force team and Zonal Coordinator.
Sorry, Krishna, sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to mute everyone. You please mute yourself after that.
The District COVID Task Force has organized a very informative session for our Rotary family on all you wanted to know about the COVID vaccine. May I now call upon our District Coordinator of the COVID Task Force, past President Dr. Indumati Gopinath of our Rotary Club of Bombay Chembur West, to conduct the proceedings of today's meeting. A senior consultant pathologist practice in laboratory medicine. She has also been the past president of the Indian Medical Association Chembur branch. Presenting before you, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Indumati Gopinath.
Thank you so much, President Krishnan. Good evening, District Governor Sunil Mehra and our Chief Guest, Dr. Pankaj Bhatnagar, and all the district dignitaries and my fellow Rotarians and friends. You know, actually an incredible situation has occurred. I have, in my entire laboratory medicine practice as a pathologist, have seen that healthcare seekers never really bothered about the full forms or the technicalities or leave alone the technologies. In fact, even our medical fraternity colleagues were not so much in molecular biology or methods. But today, reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction, RT-PCR, the whole community is buzzing with all these words: rapid antigen test, mRNA, live attenuated vaccine, adenovirus, protein subunit, No virus has generated so much knowledge and curiosity and received so much attention ever, our lifetimes at least. The vaccine too is being scrutinized microscopically by all. How can otherwise all the clubs, all the 107 be co-hosts? Everyone is interested in knowing. Too much inputs, too many gray areas. So a district COVID task force has been under the national umbrella. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce this highly productive team of 4 zonal coordinators and their chairs. And primarily as Rotarians, we have organized this first district awareness program to see that we all get to know the facts. And as responsible volunteers who are called Rotarians, we give right information to the community and are not caught unawares when asked something. This particular team at the national level, we have past RI Director Ashok Mahajan, who is the national chair of the COVID task force. Zonal level, we have past District Governor Dr. Jayant Kulkarni, who takes care of 3 districts, including ours. District leadership, of course, Sunil Mehra. I'm honored to be taking up the responsibility as a district coordinator. And I have my co-Rotarian and past president for my own club, Dr. Haresh Asnani, a retinal fellow, an ophthalmologist of great repute, who is the technical expert. And we have divided for convenience the zone into 4, our district into 4. The South zone is headed by Zonal Coordinator Dr. Quresh Muscati. He is a senior officer and past president of Bombay North, as well as the All India Ophthalmological Society. District Chair Kavita Godbole, past president of the Rotary Club of Bombay. Coming to the Central Zone, we have a Zonal Coordinator Dr. Manish Motwani, Chief Coordinator of the current year, past president of Mulund Hillview, a bariatric surgeon of repute. District Chair for this Central Zone is Dr. Anil Bradu, a senior urologist, president of the Mumbai Urological Society and the Western chapter of the National Urological Society. Northwest Zone, we have Zonal Coordinator Ashish Tapiawala, who is the past president of Rotary Club of Borivali and also the Zonal Coordinator for membership this year, doing a great job. District Chair Dr. Vipul Patel, Rotary Club of Bombay Northwest, a senior pathologist and managing committee member of the Association of Practicing Pathologists of India. Western Zone, we have Dr. Pankaj Maheshwari, Zonal Coordinator, past president of the Rotary Club of Mumbai Warsaw, successfully leading a dental project for schools end-to-end with treatment, and the district chair, PP Mehernosh Engineer, Rotary Club of Bombay North Island, past president. And as we know, they always say that leadership is not about the title nation. It's about creating impact, influence, and inspiration. And this applies so aptly to our district governor, Sunil Mehra. Creating opportunities where others may not even perceive it, that is DG Sunil Mehra. This famous Murphy baby and corporate gifts business entrepreneur has introduced innovations in the district like Giver's Gain, turning e-waste into TRF donations. Right now, we are world #1 in TRF giving in this Rotary year. Public conveniences for the specially abled, projects for all the clubs through Genius 3H projects funded through crowdfunding, motivating internal and external club growths, 500 members added, 6 clubs done. Leading by unwavering charisma and motivation, especially during these tough, restrictive times, may I call upon District Governor Sunil Mehra to express his thoughts at the moment.
Thank you, Indumati. Remember, in the membership team, you're the woman behind me. Thank you so much for the nice, kind words. Past Rotary International Director Ashok Mahajan ji, WHO Delegate Pradeep Patnagar ji, PDG Dr. Jain, entire team of this COVID vaccine task force, an initiative led by Dr. Indumati. Sorry?
May I request everyone to stay muted, please?
Dr. Jayant, entire team of this COVID vaccine initiative led by Dr. Indumati, and I know the great contribution that is going in by all the other members too. Host Club President Krish and all you visionary presidents who have actually created history, all 107 clubs hosting this event. You know, history is created by giants who attempt to realize a dream with a vision. A vision to see a crippling disease get washed away from this globe, and a dream to save more lives from becoming crippled than were lost in the world wars. Some stories of giants sometimes remain untold, and one such partially untold story is the story of how Rotary has helped eradicate polio from the world, barring 2 countries. Many are aware of this humongous effort of committed and dedicated Rotarians. I remember when I joined Rotary in 1998, NID, National Immunization Day, was a date that Rotarians would step out on a Sunday morning, going to the designated areas, helping transport those with just those 2 drops per person of the vaccine for polio. These drops were administered to young children in order to immunize them from the dreaded polio virus. But the work started in early 80s, where Rotary started undertaking immunization camps throughout Southeast Asia and the entire world. However, it was in 1988 that laid the foundation for an immunization plan, when at the World Health Assembly, Rotary pushed forward a resolution to eradicate polio. Today, with 10 years gone by when India was declared polio-free, we celebrate within our country the laudable effort of all those who have helped sustain that. But the story is still not over, and the effort cannot dwindle as the world is still with 2 countries affected. Many may be wondering why I'm talking about polio at a COVID seminar. Precisely so, as today we are seeing history being recreated with 2 giants, WHO and Rotary, come together once again to ensure not only to rid this world of polio, but ensure we make the environment safer with the eradication of the COVID-19 virus now, a disaster which has struck our world for the first time in our lifetimes. The magnitude of this effort cannot lead to any amount of callousness, and we need to see our efforts go to the right end. The path, the process, shall be explained by the seniors who follow, but the execution shall be a proud moment for all us Rotarians. And remember, visionaries, we lived with the pandemic. We are now going to vaccinate all, but this historic moment happened in our times of service to the community. So from polio to pandemic, Rotarians serve the world. Some battles we may have lost, but the war will be won. Visionaries always lead to conquer through all challenges. Thank you for having me here. And on this momentous occasion, we'd like to release the special edition of the polio book that we've come out with. Saurabh, can we have the display? And can we have both Bhatnagarji and Ashokji also on the screen? In the presence of both Bhatnagarji and Ashok Mahajanji, we launched this special edition of the polio GML.
Can you spotlight them, please?
Ashok Mahajanji. Sorry, we can take me out. Yeah. Harish, Ashok Mahajanji. Okay, you can. In your presence, sir, Ashok Mahajanji and Pankaj Bhatnagarji, we launched this special edition of the polio Governor's Monthly Letter.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And Ashok Mahajan sir, you will understand you have been spearheading the entire polio movement in India, and you will honestly appreciate this magazine when it comes to you. Thank you, Indumati. All over to you now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, District Governor Sunil. You know, great leaders never really set out to be a leader. They set out to make a difference. And it's not the role, it's about the goal. So we have such great leader in our district, past RI Director Ashok Mahajan, and the role that he has played in a very unconventional manner in removing the last vestiges of polio out of the country is something that Rotary history has become well aware of, and he's a well-known personality. May I call upon Dr. Quresh Muscati, Zonal Coordinator, to introduce Ashok Mahajan ji to us.
Thank you, Indu. I would have loved to introduce Ashok Mahajan starting from the time that he was a fetus. But since I've got only 2 minutes, we'll skip a few things, but let's start from the fetus, because when he was in his mother's womb, he's always been an impatient person, started from then. He was in a hurry to achieve independence. India wanted to achieve independence. Ashok beat India to it, came out 2-3 weeks before India got independence. We won't go further from fetus onwards. I will skip his life history, his education, marital status, kid status. I'll come straight to the point. Let me tell you why out of over 120,000 Rotarians spread across more than 35 districts of our country, I am introducing a gentleman called Ashok Mahajan to you. He must have done something right. Ashok was invited to Rotary in 1973. He was our district governor in 93-94 and RI director in 2007 to 2009. Without waiting for his term to get over, RI invited him to be a TRF trustee for 2009-2013, an honor bestowed to just a handful in the entire history of Rotary, and I have done a Google check on this. You know why? Why this impatience from RI? So Ashok is impatient, RI is impatient. Why all this drama? This is because in the period of 1996 to 2007, the 10 or 12 years, Ashok distinguished himself as a member of the National Polio Plus Committee. He raised crores of rupees for polio. He played a major role in bringing corporates in India to support the Rotary Foundation. I remember his frequent trips to Mrs. Rajshri Birla's office and getting her to come to almost every district conference of ours and always donate huge sums. He was instrumental in bringing the Muslim religious leaders to support polio. He started these ulema committees, which was a huge success in UP, Bihar, where there was so much resistance to polio. RI saw this and asked him to join the International Polio Plus Committee for 2009 to 13. So please understand, RI director, then jumped to RI trustee, and then jumped simultaneously as being RI trustee to help the International Polio Plus Committee. Ashok, of course, has been felicitated with Rotary Foundation's highest awards, the Distinguished Service Award, the Service Above Self Award, the Regional Service Award for a Polio-Free World, the International Service Award for a Polio-Free World, and the Polio Plus Pioneer Award. I'm only restricting my talk today to Ashok and polio. He's been a member of 1,000 other committees, membership, task forces, and literacy and everything. But we'll only talk about Ashok as our polio man, because that is where it's crucial. And that is why RI has recognized his tremendous efforts in polio and has christened him the chairman of Rotary India's COVID task force. Ladies and gentlemen, I take great pleasure in presenting Ashok Mahajan.
Oh God, thank you and thank you very much, Quresh. Let me tell you, Quresh, very honestly, it was 4th or 5th of July, 1993, when I visited Bombay North for the installation function. Harish Vora was to be installed as the president of the club, and Badar, whom I always address as my guru, he introduced me. And believe you me, when he was introducing me, I was in tears. And today also, you have touched my heart, and you are known as your father, Badar Muscati. Thank you very much, Quresh, for your generosity in introducing me, presenting me. I will always remember this thing. I will always cherish this thing for many, many years to come. The way I am describing your father, Badar, I will also keep in mind what the way you have presented me today. Thank you very much once again. Governor Sunil, Governor Sunil, Zonal Coordinator, past District Governor Dr. Jayant Kulkarni, the District Coordinator Dr. Indumati, our guest speaker, President of Rotary Club of Chembur West, Krishnan, my fellow Rotarians and friends. As I said, congratulations to Sunil and his team for bringing out the very fine GML on polio eradication program, celebration of 10th year of India polio free. Polio being very close to my heart, I was liking it, and I'm pretty sure when I get the copy, I will go from cover to cover. My congratulations to you, Sunil, and the entire team of your Governor Monthly Letter for doing such a wonderful job. I express my very sincere gratitude to Indumati, Dr. Indumati, for inviting me here, giving me an excellent opportunity to be amongst you all, listen to some of the experts on COVID risk or reward, and share some of my thoughts on this occasion. Well, friends, a shot of hope. Rotary has entered a new era of responsibility. I am addressing you as the chairman of the Rotary India Task Force, set up to assist the Government of India in the COVID-19 vaccination drive. I am humbled by the task before me. I am grateful for the trust you have bestowed and mindful of the sacrifices you have made during our joint fight against polio, hunger, illiteracy, and many other such tasks which we were asked to face. What you know about this pandemic matters, but more than that, who you are and what you intend to do to serve the community during the same time matters more. You have been living in isolation for many months because of this disease, but now is the time to reconnect with the community. Today, we are able to celebrate the success achieved by the scientists in producing the vaccines that promises to eradicate COVID-19 from India. They work not for themselves, but for the cause of humanity. The need of the people has been heard and the need of the people has been heeded. We as Rotarians must look ahead in our uniquely Rotary way, and that is restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sight on fighting COVID-19 like how we did against polio eradication program in India. The success of polio eradication story depended not on any one of us, not on some of us, but friends, on all of us. Over the past 100 years, we have fought for the welfare of the humanity on many fronts, did many projects, and showed that Rotary cares and Rotary shares. But today, this pandemic has shown that we still have far to go. We have to press forward with speed and urgency since the vaccine rollout program has entered a crucial phase. Now, there may be some who question the scale of our ambitions in eradicating COVID-19. Some may even think that our movement and the system cannot handle too many big plans all at once. Their memories are short, for they have forgotten what Rotary has done in eradicating polio from the world. We as Rotarians have shown what free men and women can achieve when imagination is joined to common purpose and necessity to courage. The question we ask today is not whether our Rotary movement is big or small, but whether it works. And friends, obviously, my answer is yes. When the Rotary Foundation was formed, we tackled many community-based problems, not just with funds, but sturdy alliances and enduring convictions. Not many years in our Rotary's history have been difficult or challenging than the one we are in now today. The virus which stacked the world silently has taken a tremendous toll. It has taken the lives of many of our friends and relatives in just 1 year, probably more than what we lost over the past 5 or 10 years. Here I am reminded of the Urdu couplet where the poet says, "Gam na kar mere आशियां का, गम न कर मेरे आशियां का, वो जलता है उसे जलने दो, पर रोक इन हवाओं को, सवाल सारे चमन का है." Well, friends, those who are gone, we have no control over that. But those who are still surviving, it becomes our responsibility to see that we put our right foot forward to save them, to protect them. A cry for survival came from every corner of the globe, a cry that cannot be more desperate or any more clear. It is now up to us, the Rotarians, to help the government and other agencies to confront the disease and defeat it. But to overcome these challenges, to restore the confidence of the people that they can eradicate COVID-19 and to secure their future, more action is required than the words. It requires that all of us, all Rotarians in every district of the country, to unite and to take a step forward, literally outside their homes. This is one more challenge we will have to face, and we must face it. I ask every Rotarian to join me in this cause. We have to reinforce the confidence about the vaccines with those who may be skeptical about its efficacy or have misinformation and doubts about its effects. We can deliver this confidence. We know that the resistance may emerge from certain segments of the society. We also know that this is not new. We faced it during the NIDs when we went door to door for getting the children vaccinated against polio. Every year, the district governors, the office bearers of over 4,000 Rotary clubs in India, and every one of 153,000 Rotarians in the country take an oath to serve the community. The oath was normally taken during the rising tides of prosperity and still waters of peace. But friends, as Sunil will endorse that, in July 2020, the oath was taken amidst gathering clouds of COVID-19, raging storm about fear of life, losing jobs, uncertainty of the future, and being locked down in your places. And at this time, Rotary has carried on not simply because of the skill or vision of the leaders of the movement in various levels, but because of you, the Rotarians, who have remained faithful to the ideals of our forebears and true to our founding principles of service of ourselves. So it has been, and so it must be with this generation of Rotarians. As the COVID-19 vaccination campaign continues with varying degree of enthusiasm in the country, in the second phase of the drive, when the vaccination is open for those over 50 years of age, I call upon Rotarians and their family members to get the jab. Optics of Rotarians sporting the Rotary logo in their t-shirts, caps, aprons, and clothing could go a long way in addressing the concern of vaccine skeptics. The target fixed by the Government of India is not being achieved, and several reasons are being attributed to the slow uptake, with software glitches, adverse events, and uncertainty over the efficacy of the vaccines being among the many reasons. The information, the education, and the communication, that is IEC campaign of the Government of India, is commendable and will probably need the assistance of voluntary organizations and service organizations like Rotary to take the message to every nook and corner of the country. When called upon by the government, our advocacy efforts will have to be focused on countering a handful of vested interests who are interested in spreading the rumors and encouraging vaccine hesitancy among those vulnerable to such propaganda in the population. Countries across the globe are asking India for the access to vaccines. We should remove the misinformation among the certain sections of the community in our own country. With this newfound enthusiasm, we are gathered here because we have chosen hope over fear, unity of purpose over our personal differences and discord. The time has come to reaffirm our enduring spirit, to choose our better history, to carry forward the noble idea that we stand for service above self, and this has been passed on from generation to generation over the past 116 years of Rotary. As we consider the role that unfolds before us, we must pledge to work alongside the valiant health workers and other government agencies and eradicate COVID-19. In reaffirming the greatness of our Rotary movement, we must understand that greatness is never given, it must be earned. Yes, friend, greatness is always earned. Our journey in Rotary has never been one of the shortcuts or settling for less. It is not a path for the faint-hearted or those who prefer leisure over work or seek only the pleasure of awards and fame. Time and again, the founding fathers of Rotary and the leaders who came later struggled and sacrificed and worked till their hands were raw so that communities around the world can get the taste of good life. They saw Rotary as bigger than the sum of our individual ambitions, greater than all the differences of birth or wealth or faction. This is the journey we must continue today in our missions to end COVID-19 from the world. Look everywhere. There is work to be done in taking health care to those who need it most. The state of the world today calls for action, bold and swift, and we must act. We must donate to the cause and lay a new foundation for growth. We'll continue to strive to eliminate polio from the world, eradicate hunger from the world, end COVID-19, destroy illiteracy, restore healthcare facilities at every village, and meet the demands of the new age. All this we can do, all this we will do. And before I conclude, an Urdu couplet comes in my mind where the poet says, खुशबू का एहतराम हवाएं न कर सकी, खुशबू का एहतराम हवाएं न कर सकी तो फूलों को अपनी शाख पे मर जाना चाहिए। पानी से दोस्ती है तो दरिया में क्यों रहे, पानी से दोस्ती है तो दरिया में क्यों रहे, समंदर की तह पे हमें उतर जाना चाहिए। Friends, if the air is unable to get the fragrance of the flower, then flowers have no business to remain on the branches of the tree. Similarly, when we have accepted service above self as our motto, when we are there to serve the community, to serve the humanity, to serve the nation and world at large, why should we be playing in the shallow water? Why not go deep into the sea and make the world know that Rotary cares? Rotary looks beyond itself, Rotary shares, and Rotary is for the community, Rotary is for the humanity, Rotary is for the nation and world at large. Once again, my congratulations to Indumati for organizing this event. I could see that almost 300 people are already entered. That speaks the success of this event, and I'm pretty sure this message will be spread in every nook and corner of the district, and inshallah, we will certainly succeed, and succeed to such an extent that people will remember that yes, Rotary in 3141 did a good job. They are the real warriors of this disease, and they deserve our appreciation. Thank you very much, and good luck to you all, friends. Good luck to you all.
Thank you so much, Ashok ji. You are indeed the pride of our district and Rotary India. We have a very efficient, quiet, but proficient and knowledgeable, action-oriented past district governor, Dr. Jayant Kulkarni, dental surgeon by profession, who has done significant work in the field of prevention of measles, mumps, and rubella in the past. The zonal coordinator for 3 districts, 31, 41, 42, and 30. May I call upon Dr. Jay Kulkarni to introduce our guest speaker for the day, Dr. Pankaj Bhatnagar.
Thank you, Dr. Indumati. I hope I'm audible.
Yes,
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
doctor.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Good evening to everybody. And let me simplify the addressing by saying that let's welcome our special guest, Dr. Bhatnagar, all the Rotary dignitaries and fellow Rotarians. Friends, let me compliment the district team for this excellent attendance that we have right now. And the purpose we are here for is to understand our role and prepare ourselves for the role. What we are trying to do is assist the government. As you are aware, polio was the program. I hope, Indumati, I have a minute to speak about the program before I introduce Dr. Bhatnagar. Yeah.
Yes.
In case of polio, as it was pointed out at the recently held National Task Force meeting, in case of polio, it was Rotary's program that we went to government for help for. This time it is the government's program, and we are assisting the government. The government is asking us to help them with this. So that's the difference right now. And second thing is, although the MOUs and all are centralized, the action is actually at the local level. That is where all the Rotarians are going to make a difference. And what is important is to recognize the local needs, identify the local need and meet them. So that is what we will have to do. And Rotarian volunteer force is required as always. And there are a few things that we need to keep in mind. As Ashokji also pointed out, what we need to do is overcome hesitancy. Hesitancy that comes in because of the doubts about the efficacy of vaccine or the reactions to the vaccine that are spreading largely because of misinformation. So we ourselves need to be better informed so that we can educate the people. Second thing we need to do is fight complacency. Sometimes you get a confidence that we have done so well in polio eradication and the MR vaccination campaigns. So we'll do this also. That's one part of the country. And the other part is there is a reducing number of cases in our area now. So one should not feel that this is, as it is going on its own, why vaccinate people. So that kind of complacency is also likely to creep in. So we must fight that. There is also a fear of second wave for which we need to prepare, educate ourselves. And fear of mutations. Will this vaccine act against the mutated viruses? We have the expert here to tell us about it. But most important thing is being there. Ashokji just pointed out what all things we can do at the various vaccination centers. There will be a number of vaccination centers, and the local clubs will be able to assist the vaccinators and the municipal staff to reach out to maximum number of people and carry out the procedure smoothly. But what is important, therefore, is that we must be present at the site. We must communicate with the public, be present at the site, and use this as an opportunity Rotary has opened for us to serve people. So it's for us to be prepared and make sure that we show the strength of Rotary. Having said that, let me now come to introducing our chief guest, Dr. Pankaj Bhatnagar, who is the acting team leader of the National Polio Public Health Surveillance Project at the WHO Country Office of India. This is abbreviated, it's called NPSP, which was earlier known as the National Polio Surveillance Project, and has in recent years been transitioned to support immunization, strengthening measles, support immunization strengthening, measles rubella eradication, and at the request of Government of India, it has been repurposed to support COVID-19 response and vaccination activities. A pediatrician, Dr. Bhatnagar is by his qualification. He joined the NPSP in 1999 and has since held national level positions, being responsible for the capacity building of health workforce, strengthening activities leading to polio eradication, measles and rubella elimination, and intensification of routine immunization. He has, to his credit, several publications on vaccine preventable diseases in peer-reviewed journals. An avid sports fan, nature enthusiast, he is widely traveled. And ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Dr. Pankaj Bhatnagar.
Thank you. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. So can I begin my talk?
Yes, Rob.
Okay.
Yes,
so
go ahead. Go ahead.
Good evening. Ashok Mahajanji, District Governor Sunil Mehra, Dr. Jayant Kulkarni, and Dr. Indumati Gopinathan, and other esteemed dignitaries and colleagues and members of the Rotary Club. I think before I share my screen and start the presentation, I would like to say that I would like to say that you really touched my heart at the very beginning, because I'm here, I think, because I'm a part of the polio eradication program that began with the launch of the with the Delhi Pulse Polio program in 1994 under Dr. Harshvardhan, where I was one of the members. And from being a pediatrician, I'm somebody who sort of transitioned into a public health person. And so that's why I was really touched, because we have completed 10 years of polio eradication. When I joined the polio program, people used to, from HQ and WHO headquarters, other places, they would say India would be the last country in the world to eradicate polio. And we were so disappointed, disheartened at times to listen to that. And but we have shown the world that together we can do it, and we have now done it, and we have maintained it for 10 years. That's also a very big achievement. We see other countries still struggling with polio. So I'm particularly pleased that we have completed 10 years, and it's due to the commitment of the government, of the health forces, and it shows the resilience of our system. Although it's been called weak, our health systems, but still we have managed something in public health that is very critical, and that's very essential for the future generations. They don't know, I'm sure the next generation, I'm also not only a father, but also a grandfather. So my grandson and grandchildren, they will not know what was polio and how terrible the disease was. So I'll come back to the topic. I'm sorry, I deviated a little. You gave me a very interesting title, actually. You said risk or reward. Normally, when people ask me to present, they say, Pankaj, give us an update on COVID vaccination. So it's a very straightforward thing. But when you said risk or reward, I think you wanted me to go a little deeper. So I see a number of doctors on this forum, and also some non-doctors. So I've gone a little behind. I'm gone a little behind in time, just to highlight the importance of vaccination, because today we are and it's come up because I think people are wondering what is going to happen with COVID, and whether it's worth whether the risk of getting vaccinated is worth the reward. So that's how I've sort of planned my first 20 minutes is to talk a little bit about vaccination, and then I will go on to answer some of the queries that you had. So first, just trying to simplify what is vaccination. It's a simple, safe, effective way of protecting people against harmful germs before they come into contact with them. So what do we do? What do vaccinologists do? They actually administer vaccines, they get the vaccines administered, and the vaccines use our body's own natural defenses to build resistance to the infecting organisms or to specific diseases against which they are created. Generally, vaccines contained only killed or weakened forms of germs like viruses or maybe bacteria. They themselves do not cause disease or put you at risk of complications. So I would like to sort of state this very, very clearly that this is very important. The killed vaccines will not lead to disease per se, but there will be some side effects which we will discuss later. Most vaccines are given by injection, but vaccines are also given orally. We know all of us have been in polio, so polio is given orally. There are nasal vaccines that are given intranasally, and maybe 5 or 6, 7 years down the line, vaccines will be given through intradermal patches. You can just put like a band-aid and the vaccine will be there. So this is undergoing trials. Also, we know that vaccination is one of the most cost-effective public health intervention in the world. So you can, there are many things you can do to stop a disease or any other disease, but a simple act of vaccination would be really the most cost-effective. There have been many studies that have time and again highlighted that vaccination is really cost-effective. Going back in time, vaccination is not something that we started in 1900. So it was way back when Edward Jenner, he in 1798, he published and he gave this boy cowpox, and that led to the start of this vaccination because the child was protected from getting smallpox. So it has a long history. It's not that it's something that we started now. And just highlighting something about smallpox, when Dr. Edward Jenner invented, and he's known as the father of immunology. And so the reward, so what he started in close to 1798, actually the reward was reaped when we had the last case of smallpox in the world in 1975. India was also declared smallpox free in 77. So these are the rewards of vaccination. Similarly, there are other monumental milestones. We are not going to talk so much about polio. We all know about polio. We've been declared polio free on 27th March, the entire Southeast Asia region, 11 countries. Also, not to forget another devastating disease, maternal and neonatal tetanus. It affects the most disadvantaged communities. It really shows up where the inequity is in the country, and we are able to control it. At least it's no longer a public health problem. And I personally, and I'm sure many of the doctors on this call would attest to the fact that many of the pediatric tetanus wards have closed down because you do not any longer see the large number of cases we used to see. So again, this is the reward. I would also like to familiarize you with our immunization program in India. We call it the Universal Immunization Program. That's what the government calls it. So it's not a small program. It's one of the world's largest public health programs. It has an annual target of about 2.7 crore newborns, 2.9 crore pregnant women. Every year, there are 1.2 crore sessions planned every year, and 10 vaccines against the vaccine preventable diseases are there. So these are nationwide. In addition to that, there are 2 vaccines, the Japanese encephalitis and PCV, which are given subnationally, and the government is committed to expanding PCV. This is the pneumococcal vaccine, which prevents the common pneumonia. This will soon be all across India. And there are 29,000 cold chain points for storage and distribution. What I'm trying to say here is that the vaccination program that we are getting into, even for COVID, it has a very solid foundation, a solid base. And this EPI program was initiated in 1978. Now, Are we strangers to any new vaccine introduction? No. If you look at this slide, what you can see is that from 1985 to 2002, there were very few new vaccines that came into the program. So we had hepatitis B that was started, but then more in recent years, you will see a number of new vaccines have been launched by the government in the program, beginning with the measles second dose in 2010. We have the pentavalent vaccine, which protects from 5 killer diseases, the second dose of JE, the inactivated polio vaccine, which was in 2015, the rotavirus vaccine, which in very quick time went from a couple of states to entire country. Then one of the largest immunization programs in the world so far, the measles rubella campaign to introduce measles, and then the pneumococcal vaccine, which is also covering about 60% of our birth cohort. And then we replaced the TT vaccine with the tetanus TD, tetanus and diphtheria. So, and then more recently, rotavirus has gone nationwide. So you can see that in our country, there is a lot of knowledge, expertise, systems are there for vaccination. The difference this time is that it is an adult vaccination that we are talking about. So we have the experience of managing routine immunization activities. We have the experience of conducting large-scale immunization campaigns. For example, the polio campaign, which is ongoing, will vaccinate 165 million or 16.5 crore children. And we also have experience with adult vaccinations, especially wherever we have gone with adult JE vaccination. This has gone up to 65 years of age in those districts where JE is endemic. So that experience has been leveraged for COVID. Now, when it comes to COVID vaccine, what is our expectation? What do we really want from this COVID or any vaccination for that matter? I think first, we would like to see that the vaccine prevents further infection. As you can see on this schematic diagram, that it will prevent infection, it will prevent disease. And in case the vaccine is not efficient to prevent disease, it will prevent serious disease. So you do not have hospitalization, or even if you are hospitalized, you do not end up in ICU or do not lose lives. Ultimately, all these actions from any vaccination, particularly the COVID vaccination, will lead to a curtailment of the transmission. And once the transmission is curtailed, the disease will be controlled. So this is what is our expectation from the COVID vaccine and from many other any other vaccination programs. Now, I think there were some questions pertaining to, okay, how many vaccines are there? And so at the moment, there are about 203 candidate vaccines which are in pre-clinical phase. Just some few days back, and this slide was data was downloaded from one of the vaccine sites. There are at least 58 candidates which have entered clinical trials. And as you said in the past, there are a number of platforms. I don't want to get into the technicality of the platforms, but as we evolve in science, there are a number of new platforms that have come in. Particularly, you might have heard about the mRNA or the DNA platforms that have come in. So they are also being used, and the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine are there. Now, I will get a little bit more into what is being done for vaccination in India, for COVID vaccination. There were some questions. So what the government has done, and I'm not going into the other operational structures, I'll just say that overall, the government has created what is called NEGVAC. This is the National Expert Group for Vaccine Introduction. And this is the guiding body that guides the overall decision-making body for vaccine introduction. It's comprised of very senior level government officials with experience in the field. Now, the way, and besides that, very similar, learning from polio, We have the district task force, state task force, state steering committees. They are all managing the program. And we already had in place in our country what was called the Electronic Vaccine Intelligence Network. I know the slide may be a little small to see, but about CoWIN. So this even was renamed as CoWIN. So to signify victory against coronavirus by our Prime Minister. And so this even was a vaccine delivery management tool. So you could track the temperature of vaccines that are stored in the government's depots. That is what we have is the ILR, the ice-lined refrigerators or the deep freezers. And that temperature is stored by, there are these days, there are trackers that will give a reading on a SMS. It will go to the people who are managing. It will also tell about the vaccine quantities. So that system has been upgraded to capture details of beneficiaries who are going to get the vaccine, and also to do micro planning regarding where the vaccine will be given, who will be getting the vaccine, on which date, and then finally the vaccination will happen at the planned sites. Now, I also want to talk about, I will probably come back to the planned sites a little later, but we also want to talk about something that's called as adverse events following immunization. And often, when you give a vaccine, people come back and say, look, I had a lot of pain, or I was disabled and I had cough, fever, all these things. So, there are these untoward medical occurrences which occur, and often they are following immunization, and but they do not necessarily have a causal relationship with the usage of vaccines. So there are some which are related to the vaccine. Sometimes a person may be harboring a disease before, so they may be in the incubation period. They may not show any signs and symptoms. But when you have given the injection, a few days after that, the disease appears, and then people may think, well, this is the result of the vaccine that I received. So especially with adult immunization, people may be diabetic, hypertensive, suffering from coronary artery disease, sometimes uncontrolled. They may get into a situation where they have a myocardial infarction or a heart attack or a worsening of the condition, but that does not mean that has been precipitated by the vaccination. And for that, we need to have a system to understand these AEFIs, as we call them, and then we can record them, and then they go for a committee which examines them, looks at them. So these committees are there at the national, state, and district level. They assess whether the vaccines caused this or whether it was due to something else. So to prevent any such AEFIs also, there is a screening for any contraindications to the vaccine, ensuring safe injection practices. That means you use auto-disable syringe, one syringe for one beneficiary, and then it's discarded. Post-vaccination, there is anyone who is vaccinated is observed for 30 minutes. There is also what is called an anaphylaxis kit. So in somebody, and you must have seen this in the measles rubella campaign also, that if somebody develops a severe allergic reaction, there is injection adrenaline which is at hand that can be administered. Now, in this first phase of COVID vaccine introduction, approximately, I think Ashok Mahajanji already said it, 30 crore population will be vaccinated. To begin with, it is the healthcare workers who will be vaccinated first. These are approximately 1 crore, followed by the frontline workers, which are 2 crores. And then we get to the higher age groups. If you were to visit a site, you will find a 5-member team at the session. And you have one person who will be checking the registration status, another who will verify the documents, the third one will vaccinate, and then there are 2 more people to manage the crowd. Generally, all vaccination sites will have a waiting room, a place where you can get vaccinated, and an exit room. Also, they are ensuring that there is adequate physical distance so that, infection prevention control measures are there. Also, I would like to state that there are about 40 lakh people who have been vaccinated so far from about 72,000 sessions. Now, some of the common side effects that people have been asking on the question answers is that there might be some pain following the injection, fever, headache, side effects like fatigue, pain in the muscles, nausea, chills. So this is there in some of the patients. With that, I'll stop here and see if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatnagar. May I now request our technical coordinator, Dr. Harish Asnani, to take over and moderate the question answer sessions. We would be taking up questions which are frequently asked and relevant ones from the chat box. We are not planning to have direct questions being spoken into and asked for. Dr. Harish Asnani, can you please take over?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Indumati. Thank you, Dr. Bhatnagar, for a very detailed description about how the vaccination program is going underway in our country here. It's very, very impressive numbers that you've given in such a short time. We've had so many healthcare workers already vaccinated. So we have, the general public has a lot of reservations about the vaccines. And though it's to our credit, the humanity's credit actually, asking that has not the vaccine been hurried? Has the governments and not only the Indian government, but the other foreign governments, have they also done this in a hurry? What are the implications on the efficacy and effectiveness of these vaccines, especially if the clinical trials have been done in such a hurry?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. But if you look at the clinical trials for some of the vaccines that have been completed, so we generally do 4 stages of clinical trials, and a vaccine can be introduced after the 3rd clinical trial. But in recent times, and this is following the Ebola experience, that it was allowed to introduce a vaccine after what was the stage 2B of the clinical trial. So what is done is, when you are developing a vaccine, before you get into the clinical trial phase, you do some trials on animals and see the outcome. So whether these are safe. After that, you get into the phase 1 clinical trial. You give the vaccine to a very limited number of people, say maybe 10 to 100 people, and you are basically looking for safety. And once you are assured that the vaccine is safe and to be administered to human beings, then you do a clinical phase 2 trial, which has a larger number of participants. So you recruit about 800, 1,000 people. And again, the vaccine is given. And here you are looking for not only safety, but you are also looking for the fact whether it is able to produce a immunogenic response. So you can look at the immunogenic response. And in this 2A and 2B, you give different doses of the vaccine. So you are titrating to see which is the most suitable dose. And you are also trying to see what is the response. So once that is cleared, then you move into a larger trial, which is known as the phase 3 clinical trial, which you recruit about 20,000, 30,000 people. It generally has 2 limbs. One, you give a placebo and you don't give them but it's a double blind trial. So the person who is administering and the person receiving does not know what they are getting. So you give this vaccine and then you compare the rates of disease in those who are vaccinated versus those who are not vaccinated. So if you have gone through these steps, and from my understanding, the vaccines that we are using currently, they have cleared this phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 steps. And after they have proven their safety, their efficacy, and their in the phase 3 clinical trials, then they are being used. They have been allowed emergency use listing. Now, why emergency use? Because ideally you would need a longer period of administration and follow-up to find out if there are any long-term side effects. So that is why it is an emergency use listing, so that the manufacturers and the regulatory bodies, they keep on following for any adverse events following immunization. There is a system in the country, there is a system in place that follows for AEFIs through directly at the session site and also later. And now, based on all the data collected, you can actually come to a conclusion how safe, how immunogenic, that means it's producing an immune response, and how efficacious the vaccine are. Now, let's talk about the vaccines that have been approved across the world. So you have a Pfizer vaccine, you have the Pfizer vaccine, you have the Moderna vaccine. They've all gone up to phase 3, and the results are there. They have been published. They are available in the domain, in the over the net, and you can see that they are safe, immunogenic, and they are producing the desired results. Similarly, with AstraZeneca or the Covishield vaccine that is produced by Serum Institute of India, they have also done phase 3 clinical trials in UK, South Africa, Brazil, and their results are available. So while we may feel that it's rushed, and we do agree that it's generally shorter time from production to use in the community, but there is a lot of data about safety, about immunogenicity, about efficacy of the vaccine. Now, the issue is coming for COVAX. And the COVAX, they have shared the data not in the public domain to begin with. When the approval was given on 3rd of January, the data was shared with DCGI, that's the Drug Controller General of India, to whom they have presented the data on the safety and on the immunogenicity of the vaccine. And now recently, from their phase 1 clinical trial, it has been published on peer-reviewed journal, that is on Lancet, which does show that the vaccine is quite safe and does produce an immune response in about 87% of the people to about so that's the sort of average when it is given with what is called an adjuvant. So it is there. While we can say some people feel it's a little rushed, but at the other end of the spectrum, we also have in our country also, we have we have more than 10 million cases. So we have cases and we have more than 154,000 deaths, and there's been a huge impact on the economy. So you have to weigh the pros and cons, and that's why you want to use vaccines as early as possible. And so I think that's why we are using the vaccines as soon as they have cleared. But however, again, I will caution, it's an emergency use listing. We will have to keep following up. Even the Covaxin that is being used, that's like a open label trial. So that means where we know which vaccine is being administered, and the persons who are receiving have been asked to follow up for a period of 7 days to see if they develop any side effects. So I would say that it's for the sake of humanity that it does seem a little rushed, but it's quite safe, and the vaccines are effective. So I would go with the decision of the various governments around the world to use the vaccines to fight to control the pandemic, particularly looking at the emergence of mutant strains, which are likely to, like we know that the UK strain transmits more easily, so it's likely to cause more infections. So, that's the important thing.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatnagar. That was explained very beautifully and in great detail about the clinical trials, about the different vaccines that we have, because most of the doctors in our group who are attending this seminar, I think most of us have got their first dose. And you all will agree that each and everyone who hears that we've been vaccinated, the first question that is asked is, what did you take, Covishield or Covaxin? So everybody knows about it and everybody has reservations about Covaxin. So you clarified that really well. Another very popular question we are seeing on the chat is that, Hamara number kab aayega? That means when will the non-healthcare population be vaccinated? I'm talking about the time frame because everybody is waiting. So how do they sign up? How do they register for the vaccine? When is the app, the CoWIN app, going to be available to the general public?
So yeah, I think if you looked at one of the slides where I showed, so there, if we go to the phase 1 of the launch, so first the healthcare workers, the frontline workers started from 1st of February, and then it will be the turn of the other the rest of people in India who are above 50 years of age. So I think that will depend on how fast this thing rolls out. So and that's one of the factors. So if we are able to vaccinate the frontline workers, I think the target for the healthcare workers is to finish vaccination, at least all the first doses by before the end of February, so that again in March you can start vaccinating with the second dose, because there are 2 doses. And remember, both the vaccines have a 2-dose schedule, and the second dose is not a booster; it's a part of the schedule. So even if you have taken one, it's not complete vaccination. You need to take the second dose also to complete the vaccination schedule. So going that route, I think we can expect that by March or April, government may open up for vaccination of the third group. That is those who are, and probably they will go to those who are above 60 first. They will finish that, then between 50 to 60, and then those with comorbidities will get called. I think the way it was proposed, at least to happen, is that this CoWIN app will be open to them to register. So people will be allowed to download the app, and in the app they can key in their details. They can they will need to have their iCard, either an election iCard or Aadhaar would be the best. So it has to be Aadhaar. Aadhaar would be better because it is directly, I think, also linked to the DigiLocker, from where you can generate the certificate. So once you get the vaccination, it is through DigiLocker. You can get a certificate. Of course, some governments are also giving a printout of the vaccination certificate, but generally there is a QR coded certificate that can be downloaded through the DigiLocker once vaccination has been carried out. So I think it's a couple of weeks down the line, and it also will depend on the supply situation. The vaccine doses are limited, but I think having also introduced Covaxin, I think it's a smart move, because another 8 weeks or 10 weeks down the line, we will have more results. So Covaxin is actually very small in quantity right now. Most of the vaccine introduced is actually Covishield across the country. Covaxin is limited in quantity and in very selected districts. They will have results from the phase 3 trial, and I think probably that time you may have more doses of Covaxin also available. And I think that time the vaccination can get speeded up. I am aware from the government and their discussions with the state governments that they want to complete the vaccination by August or September. So I think the government is also aware and is keen to push the program at a faster pace, but it will depend on just the vaccine availability. And of course, there is a slight amount of restriction because you only have a X number of vaccinators who can vaccinate. It's not everyone who can go out, although it's an intramuscular injection, so it's slightly easier to give. But even then, there is a limitation, and We are vaccinating only between 100 to 200 people at any site. So those are some of the limitations. And also, very rightly, government has also said that they do not want to disrupt the essential services. That means immunization, deliveries, and other services that the government provides. They do not want to disrupt that, because those have already been disrupted during the lockdown, which led to a decline in the immunization coverage. We don't want that to happen. So some days will be reserved for things like, for example, if a polio campaign is happening, you would have seen from my graph, in the last 3 days, very few sessions were there because all the health workers were busy with the polio campaigns. Naturally, they cannot then go and do the COVID vaccination. So hopefully in the coming months, all those who are due to be vaccinated will get vaccinated.
Thank you. So just for information, in Bombay, Covaxin is being given only at JJ Hospital. All the other centers in Bombay are giving Covishield. There are some questions about comorbidities and allergies. So we all agree that the first lot of patients or people will be vaccinated are all those with comorbidities and the senior citizens. But there are very sick people who have serious ailments, heart failure and liver transplant patients, dialysis patients, some people with some kind of allergies, like say to penicillin or some other proteins. What would be their status as far as taking the vaccine is concerned?
I think allergy per se is not a contraindication to vaccination unless you are allergic to a particular component of the vaccine. So even those who are allergic should get vaccinated under close medical supervision. And one of the good things is that every center, and we also have monitored more than 20,000 sessions. I think an anaphylaxis kit is present universally all over, and they have a AEFI management center. So that's one of the good things. And we make everyone wait for 30 minutes. Government is making everyone wait, and that's being followed. So I think those are good, healthy practices for safe injection and to tackle allergies. Always inform the vaccinator that you are allergic, so that person knows that this person is allergic, could end up with itching or breathlessness, and then they are on the lookout for such symptoms and are able to take any action immediately.
What about children and people below 18 years age? What would they
So
have to
first
do?
of all, children, the trials that have been done so far have not been done on children below 18 years of age. So there is no data on the safety of vaccines below 18 years. As it is, when a new vaccine is tested, it is first tested on healthy young adults. That's the age group in which they test. And most of the trials were done in people between 18 and 55 years, and then in some countries extending up to 65 years. So since there is no data, children are not being given vaccines as of today. But if you have data that we can come back and tell us about the safety of the vaccine below 18 years of age, and I think as more data becomes available from vaccination, this is something that could change in the coming 6 to 8 months.
There are specific questions coming into the chat about heart patients, about patients with cancer on chemotherapy, or patients on dialysis. So you feel that all those patients it would be safe to give them the vaccine?
Definitely. So if I know when we say comorbidities, it means there are people with hypertension, with diabetes, with kidney failure, with other diseases. They should take the vaccine. We know that those who are on drugs like corticosteroids or are receiving some immunosuppressant therapy or maybe some anti-cancer therapy, there the response to the vaccine may be a little lower because you are here through the vaccine. We are trying to push the immune system into responding and making antibodies against the foreigner who is coming into our body. And when we go for cancer therapy and other things, many drugs that are given are actually beating down our immune system to sort of perform less optimally, that could result in lower seroconversion, lower uptake of vaccines in those patients. But still, we know that those patients are also at higher risk of infection. So they should get vaccinated.
There is some discussion on some WhatsApp groups where people who are saying that if you take paracetamol or you take anti-inflammatories, if you get body ache, the effect of the vaccine or the antibody production of the vaccine can get affected. Is it true?
I don't think that's true. The process that happens is once we give the injection intramuscularly, the vaccine is released in small amounts to our lymphatics and to the our fighting system, as we may call it in a layman's language, our system that recognizes the foreign protein. So there is an innate immunity system that is there, and there are antibodies that are produced, humoral antibodies that are going to be produced by the system. They are unaffected by fever or pain reducing drugs like paracetamol. So that is not going to dampen the immune response following a vaccine. So if somebody does get a high fever, and I believe people, some of them are having chills with rigors and
Yes.
high temperatures. So naturally, to feel more comfortable, they will need to take paracetamol for a short duration, maybe 1 or 2 days.
Dr. Harish,
Yeah.
Dr. Harish, we lost you.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I lost the audio for a minute.
Yeah. We lost the audio.
The one important question here is about the other vaccinations which people with comorbidities take, like they always take their yearly dose of influenza vaccine, pneumococcal vaccine, hepatitis B. At the same time, COVID vaccine is also going to be taken. So is there going to be some kind of a time duration or a time gap between these vaccines, which you have to be a little careful of to get the best
Yes.
immune response to all the vaccines that you're taking?
Generally, the body is able to mount a response even if more than one vaccine is taken. We have seen that in childhood immunization. But here I would like to state that what has been advised by the vaccine manufacturers is that you give an interval of 15 days between the two vaccinations.
Okay.
So let's go by what they are saying.
Right.
So give an interval of 15 days between a pneumococcal or like an influenza vaccine if you have taken COVID vaccines.
Wonderful. I think we are running out of time. It's close to 9 o'clock, and somebody's even asked a question about alcohols and vaccines. So let's put that as a last question. It's a very popular question, which a lot of people have asked me too. Okay, can you have alcohol after taking the vaccine?
Well, alcohol in limited quantities is okay. If you take alcohol excess, it can also have disastrous effects. Otherwise, alcohol is not going to knock out the immune system. It will knock our senses out.
Yeah, so what I tell my patients or people who ask me is that if you have alcohol, next day if you have a body ache, I don't know whether it's due to the alcohol or due to the vaccine. So it'll be very confusing. So better avoid it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've come to the end of this very, very interesting and stimulating discussion, and I'll hand over back to Dr. Indumati for the conclusion of this session. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatnagar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatnagar. It was very illuminating, and even amongst us medical consultants, we do have some areas that lack clarity, but you have very beautifully got it out. And Dr. Harish Asnani, thank you so much for moderating this session. Just one question: is it to be taken annually?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. So we know that this vaccine is going to work for 6 to 12 months. Maybe you should have an annual seminar to see what the right answer. We don't know. We don't know if the COVID pandemic stays, And if the data, research data shows that the immunity is waning, like it does for influenza, or the vaccine or the virus is changing structure to the extent that our vaccine is no longer effective, then probably yes. Otherwise, and I think there was an earlier question about the mutant strain. Currently, the vaccine will protect you from the mutant strains as well. That's what the current research is telling us as of today, because the antibodies produced are not just against that point mutation, but it's against a lot of proteins in the spike of the coronavirus.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatnagar. And we all know a program of this nature, a lot of efforts go into making the program happen and also sustain its success throughout the program. May I request President-elect of the Rotary Club of Bombay, Chembur West, Mr. Mohan Anandath, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Respected Dr. Pankaj Bhatnagar, NPSP team leader at the WHO India, past RI Director and Chair, National COVID Task Force, Rotary India, Ashok Mahajan, PDG Dr. Jayant Kulkarni, Zonal Coordinator for 3 districts, including 3141, our own DG Sunil Mehra, all the PDGs, other dignitaries, fellow Rotarians, and all the others among the audience. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the lead host, Rotary Club of Bombay Chembur West, it is my proud privilege to carry out the pleasant task of presenting the vote of thanks. We are overwhelmed by the record 100% participation. All the 107 Rotary clubs who have co-hosted this program today, they've all participated. We sincerely thank each and every one, and we are sure that all the words of wisdom imparted by the renowned speakers would have helped you in gaining so much of information and clearing up all your doubts about COVID vaccination. Would like to thank District COVID Task Force team led by PP Dr. Indumati Gopinathan for the very relevant and topical event. We've been struggling with COVID for the entire year now. Technical coordination by District Secretary Saurabh Sonawala and our PP Dr. Harish Asnani. We take this opportunity to thank the district for giving Rotary Club of Bombay Chembur West the privilege to host such an important virtual webinar. Last but not the least, each one of you from the audience who have made themselves available by adjusting their schedules to accommodate to today's meeting and making it such a grand success. Thank you and good night.
Can we just have the slide, please, of all the clubs? Thank you so much once again, everybody. A very good night to all of you. Stay safe. Get vaccinated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good night, everyone.